By the summer of 1998, The X-Files was already one of the biggest shows on television, not just in ratings, but in cultural influence. A weird, paranoid, deeply serialized sci-fi thriller with cult appeal that somehow became a mainstream phenomenon. It had spawned trading cards, action figures, novels, video games, and an entire generation of sleep-deprived fan theorists desperate to know who the smoking man really worked for. After 5 seasons of aliens, abductions, bees, black oil, and Scully saying, "Mulder, it's me,"
It's me.
Mulder, it's me. It's me. Where are you?
Hi, it's me.
Mulder, it's me.
the show finally made the leap to the big screen with The X-Files: Fight the Future, a movie designed to do the impossible, continue the show's tangled mythology, offer payoff for longtime fans, and somehow still make sense to people who had never seen a single episode. And in true X-Files fashion, it was ambitious, a little chaotic, full of strange choices, and kept you guessing long after the credits rolled. Then in the fall of 2022, something far less significant occurred. Some jackass with a microphone and basic editing software decided it would be a great idea to talk about every single episode of The X-Files. And now, after 117 episodes of stretchy serial killers, fluke men, backwoods inbreds, alien abductions, and dozens of people asking, "Are you gonna do the movie, JB?" We've finally arrived at The X-Files: Fight the Future. So sit back and try not to get probed, as we take a look at and break down the show's first foray onto the big screen, in the only way a complete idiot like me possibly could. The film begins, and it's weird to say film, since we're usually talking about an episode, but the film begins in the middle of a mid-2000s Geico commercial. We've got a couple cavemen doing cavemen things, when one of them is blindsided by one of the most terrifying aliens I've ever seen. Remember when these things were cute and tiny? This caveman wasn't about to let this alien off easy, especially after what it just did to his buddy, but apparently this thing bleeds the black oil. The movie then jumps a couple years into the future, you know, a year or two. Some kids find a cave which is supposed to be the same one we just saw, just with a lot less ice and snow. Little Stevie finds a human skull and that black oil. Standing in it probably isn't the best thing, but if it can bubble up through the ground like this, why hasn't it bubbled to the surface? The black oil starts entering into Stevie through his legs, but this just has me wondering something I've mentioned before. Why do the alien rebels seal their face shut to prevent being infected, when the black oil can enter right through your skin? And this isn't the first time we've seen it enter into someone this way either. Anyways, Stevie's boned. Some firefighters are called in to save him, but are we sure they can be trusted? I'm pretty sure this guy is a cannibal, and I'm pretty sure Mulder shot him dead. They lose contact with a few of the firefighters, but don't worry, these sketchy government guys are on the job. Though aren't they the ones that captured E.T.? Hey, what do you think they need those tanker trucks for? A week later, the film shifts focus to a federal building in Dallas, Texas. Or at least that's what this text in the bottom corner tells me. Hey, this guy looks pretty familiar too. I wonder how his wife's doing. There appears to be a bomb in a building, though is that really FBI work? Aren't they supposed to be tracking down UFOs?
Mulder, it's me.
Where are you, Scully?
Mulder, it's me.
Mulder, it's me.
Mulder, it's me. Are you there?
Oh, my sweet Scully on the big screen. Oh, and Mulder's here too, I guess. Since the X-Files burned down, they're now stuck doing normal FBI work, like bomb threats and terrorist attacks, which is so mundane. But in typical Mulder fashion, he has himself and Scully checking out a building that didn't even receive the bomb threat. The bomb threat came in at the federal building, but he's like, nah, terrorists are known for being tricksters. Let's check out this one instead. Mulder goes to fetch a couple drinks, but yet again we have someone who looks very familiar. I wonder if this guy likes to pass out death notes. Be careful shaking that, Mulder. You're more likely to die from a vending machine than a fluke man attack.
Scully,
Scully, I found the bomb.
you're funny.
Mulder and Scully were having a little fun just a few minutes ago, but I don't know why she wouldn't believe him when he says he found a bomb. I mean, it's not the first time he's found a bomb. Scully quickly realizes Mulder's telling the truth, and immediately calls in that they have the wrong building. John Locke cuts the door down and tells everyone to get out. Mulder tries to protest, but John tells him to leave, and that's an order, mister. Nobody should be worried, I mean, he knows what he's doing. Or maybe he doesn't? Is he gonna do anything? Wait, didn't he cut that door down? Well, okay, I wasn't exactly expecting him to just sit there, but I kinda understand why he did what he did. I mean, he did cheat on his wife with a coworker who he got pregnant, and then she started going insane and was kinda turning into her serial killer grandfather. He probably just didn't want to pay alimony to an ex-wife or pay for his new crazy baby mama's child. But at least he didn't get caught cheating at a Coldplay concert. Now that's embarrassing. Since the bomb went off, the FBI has to put the blame on someone, and that someone is Scully? Well, Mulder too, but he arrives late like always. But how are they being blamed for anything? If it wasn't for their actions, everyone would have died. Instead, it was just Agent Michaud, 3 firefighters from Dallas, and a little boy. Wait, 3 firefighters from Dallas and a little boy? How does that make sense? It only gets dumber because they think this whole thing could have been prevented if Mulder had just followed protocol. But if Mulder had followed protocol, he and Scully would have been at the other building like everyone else, and even more lives would have been lost. So for their apparent screw-up, Mulder and Scully are separated, which for them is basically a Tuesday. I think Mulder's taking it pretty well, all things considered, but hey, what's Bela Lugosi doing here? Yeah, take that, you wildly more successful movie. Mulder can't even take a leak without someone spying on him. Anyways, this Curtzwhile guy tells Mulder Michaud let the bomb explode, and that FEMA has some medical quarantine office or something, and that's where the firefighters and little boy were found. Except here's the real kicker. Curtzwhile claims they were already dead. Even weirder than that is how Mulder's taxi pulls up twice. Mulder, not one easily manipulated into believing something, is manipulated into believing something, but he needs Scully's help. Poor girl can never catch a decent night's rest. I know we see this guy on a weekly basis, but there's just something so awesome about seeing him on the big screen. Wait, is that alien black oil or regular black oil? Cigarette Smoking Man has shown the body of one of the firefighters, but he looks like a living Jell-O mold.
I hate Jell-O.
It gets even worse because there's something growing and feeding on him from the inside. An alien being growing inside a human host? This is definitely an original idea that I've never seen anywhere else. Mulder and Scully make their way to the naval hospital where the bodies are being held, and I don't know how he does it, but Mulder is so good at bullshitting his way inside of these places. I would get shot before I even uttered my first word.
Oh my god, this man's tissue, Mulder.
It's like jelly.
I hate Jell-O.
Oh yeah, this definitely looks like someone who was in a building explosion. So the people that chewed out Mulder and Scully, did they even bother to look at these bodies? But can anyone tell me why it looks like Scully is wearing a lab coat when she touches the body though? Because she clearly isn't. Mulder leaves Scully to autopsy the body and find out how he died. But what happens when Soldier Boy discovers they aren't supposed to be there? He makes his way to Curtzwhile's place, but why is it swarming with police?
Real nice business he's got, huh?
What's that?
Selling naked pictures of little kids on his computer.
You've got to do a better job at choosing who you associate with. Mulder finds Curtzwhile just hanging outside his building, which might be the worst place to be when it's swarming with cops. He claims they've made this all up to discredit him, but I could think of better ways to discredit someone that doesn't involve children. Curtzwhile then starts ranting about FEMA, some apocalyptic level plague, and a deal made with the aliens. Apparently FEMA is some shadow government, and when the plague is released, they'll basically take over complete control of everything and everyone. I don't know if I would listen to a guy who may or may not be a diddler, and who writes fantasy Armageddon books, but Mulder definitely believes so. Back to Dallas he goes. In the meantime, Scully's all up in them guts, when that soldier finally realizes that she's not supposed to be there.
Scully, it's me.
Holy shit, Mulder, you almost gave her away. But how the hell does a 90s cell phone have reception in a big-ass freezer? And why did the soldier not check it? Mulder's like, you're coming with me to Dallas, and Scully's all, I can't. I have a hearing tomorrow. Can you take a guess as to what she's going to do?
I'd like you to let this person take a look at them if you don't mind.
Oh, she's loyal to a fault sometimes. Scully tells Mulder about a strange protein she found in the body, which could be a nasty little virus. And then she checks out some fossil that was at the FEMA medical quarantine office, which must be important because look at her reaction. Mulder gets the location of where the fossils were found, and hey, guess where they're headed? Back at Alien HQ, they're preparing to administer the growing alien with the vaccine, but I think it's a little too late.
I can see it.
I'm sorry, but you saw what it did to that guy's chest cavity. You actually think this alien is about to let you inject it with anything? You see, when they extend their claws like that, it's like when a dog wags its tail. It means it's happy. What did he think was gonna happen? Oh goody, it's the well-manicured man. Cigarette smoking man calls him up to inform him a meeting has been called. Called by Strughold. Wait, who the hell is Strughold? Well, apparently this is Strughold, and he's, I guess, the leader of the syndicate, even though up until now, he's never been mentioned. Now, there was a real-life Nazi scientist named Hubertus Strughold, who was brought over to the United States after World War II under Operation Paperclip. The X-Files clearly uses that name deliberately. It's not just a random choice. The show ties its conspiracy mythology to real government cover-ups and secret histories, especially around Operation Paperclip. Mulder and Scully actually discover the name Strughold back in Season 3's episode Paperclip, where they find a secret mining facility called the Strughold Mining Company. Inside, they uncover smallpox vaccination records linked to alien-human hybrid experiments. This ties the Syndicate's alien colonization plans directly to covert government programs started with Operation Paperclip, where former Nazi scientists like Strughold were quietly recruited. Now here's the really confusing part, and spoiler alert, but after this movie, he's never mentioned again. I don't know why this character was added, because he really serves no purpose other than to be an Easter egg for eagle-eyed viewers who might pick up on his name. The Syndicate are all in a big panic because of the recent development of this new alien creature. I guess it throws a big wrench in their plans and what they thought the alien colonists were going to use them for.
Then you must take away what he holds most valuable, that with which he can't live without.
Hey, what do you think they meant by this hard cut to Scully? I swear, if she gets abducted again... It turns out the fossils Scully looked at had the same virus she found on the bodies, which is why she made that face. But where the hell's the dig site? You know, for a secret shadow government, they're really bad at hiding things. Some kids show up and point the agents in the direction of where the people left. Am I the only one who thinks this kinda sounds like the Terminator music?
I think they went left.
I don't know why I think they went right.
Remember what happened last time Scully told him to go right?
I turned right.
Mulder decides to do a little off-roading instead. They come to a dead end, and just before Scully can give him hell, a train rolls on by carrying unmarked tanks. Now, if those tanks are full of the black oil, just how much black oil is there? Well, these glowing structures in the middle of nowhere aren't suspicious. Sculder and Mully enter one of these structures, and there isn't much going on inside, well, unless you count the bees. Hey, remember the bees? They're back, in pog form. Mulder and Scully get chased down by some helicopters, but as quickly as the chase begins, it basically ends too. Scully arrives to her hearing a little late, but I love how she comes in looking like Pigpen from the Peanuts cartoons. While Scully's fighting for what is the fate of her career, Mulder's having a little one-on-one with Curtzwhile.
I hope to, but we are in the process of... We're working towards gathering that evidence.
Working with?
With Agent Mulder.
Now, Scully, you know you're not supposed to be working with Mulder, young lady. Mulder gets into an argument with Curtzwhile because he thinks the old man's been using him. But maybe take these arguments somewhere else. Who knows who could be listening? See, like this random guy right here. Mulder rushes back home and finds a photo proving that Curtzwhile did know his father, though the photo is hilariously de-aged. And it is convenient that all the previous photos we've seen with this father have never shown this guy.
Salt Lake City, Utah. Transfer effective immediately. I already gave Skinner my letter of resignation.
Scully's always so quick to just pack it in. So you've been reassigned. This is like the 20th time they've done that. Or maybe it's the second. I don't know, I haven't been keeping track. Mulder gets a little pissy because he doesn't think he can do this without her. And I'd have to agree. If it wasn't for her, he'd probably be dead 100 times over by now. Actually, how the hell did he stay alive before she came aboard the X-Files? Alright, you two, you're both getting a little sappy. Let's not go overboard with it.
Ow! Jesus. No. Something stung me.
God, I would pay good money to see how the shippers reacted to that in theaters. Thank God for this cock-blocking bee though, because who knows where that would have gone. Scully starts going into anaphylactic shock despite not being allergic to bee stings. But remember, these are special alien bees. Thank God the paramedics are quick on the scene, but hey, I know you. You know, I'm thinking these guys weren't the real paramedics. They're terrible shots though. I mean, how do you only graze someone's head when you're shooting at them point blank? Scully gets taken away again. Someone on the writing team really does not like her.
Cowardly Lion, Scarecrow, Dodo.
Okay, now everybody can relax. The lone gunmen are here. They basically just serve to tell Mulder what happened to Scully and give Mulder a way of leaving the hospital without anyone knowing it's him. Though would Mulder really be able to fit into Byers' clothing? I feel like Frohickey is the better match. Curtzwhile gets stopped by the well-manicured man because of course he does. This guy seems to hang around the same couple places all the time, so he was bound to be caught. Mulder arrives just in time to see the Syndicate closing the trunk of their car, which isn't suspicious at all. I'm pretty sure Curtzwhile is definitely not in there. The well-manicured man gives Mulder a little ride around the city, along with the vaccine and location of Scully. He also dumps a lot of mythology lore. The aliens have been on Earth since basically forever. They've been hiding under the Earth as the black oil, waiting to use us to reconstitute themselves, and the whole thing about the aliens using us as slaves was basically a lie from the jump. The well-manicured man basically tells him all of this because he's worried about the future for his grandchildren. They should change his name to the well-mannered man because he seems like the only Syndicate member who isn't completely evil, even if his reasoning is still pretty selfish. Surprisingly, he lets Mulder go, although it's not that surprising considering the show still has 6 more seasons and a second movie. Well, that kinda sucks. Outside of the cigarette smoking man, the well-manicured man was my favorite member of the Syndicate. Couldn't they have killed the teeth talker instead? 2 days later and Mulder is out in the middle of Antarctica. Does Skinner have a say in what Mulder does? Like, does this count as official FBI work? Is Mulder being paid right now? Mulder finds the location and it looks just like the one in Texas. I'm not gonna lie, but this whole sequence is nightmare fuel. Imagine falling down some icy shaft and potentially being stuck down there. And it only gets worse because Mulder notices a small hole and decides to jump down. This just sets my claustrophobia off the charts. While Mulder's checking out all the frozen people and aliens, the cigarette smoking man quickly realizes that they may have a security breach. For such a hush-hush project, why don't they have cameras or sensors all around the area? I know it's highly unlikely anyone would stumble upon their project in the Arctic, but it seems like a massive oversight to me. Mulder continues searching the ship and okay, how the hell is he supposed to find Scully in this thing? It's massive! It would take days if not weeks to search this entire thing. Oh, come on. Out of this entire thing, he just happened to hone in on the containment pod that she was being carried in? Mulder has himself a little fall, but honestly, he probably would have fallen to his death considering how icy everything is. Yep, it's definitely Scully's pod. We know this because she left behind her necklace, which she loses at least once per season. With so many chambers, this is going to take forever to find her. Or right away, I guess. Mulder smashes his way inside, but is this glass or is it ice? He seems to have no issue tearing it apart with his bare hands. Mulder gives Scully the vaccine and it works immediately. For what they kept calling a weak vaccine, it seems to be pretty damn strong. Not only does it save Scully, but it apparently contaminates the entire ship. I'd love to see what a strong vaccine does. It's great that he saved her and all, but she's not exactly wearing very much, and they're in the middle of the Arctic. Yes, he does give her some clothing, but still, she's gonna freeze to death.
Whoa! Come on, Scully! Whoa!
After this moment, she better never question Mulder again when he brings up aliens. The agents somehow climb up, and they are definitely in the Arctic and not a soundstage. Hurry guys, run! The PlayStation 2 graphics are crumbling. The effects in this scene aren't great, but the alien spaceship looks pretty good. Of course, Scully's completely out of it and doesn't notice the massive alien ship flying over their heads. Mulder then passes out from exhaustion, I guess, but how do either of them make it back home alive? They're in the middle of the Arctic, with wet clothing, completely exhausted, and seemingly have to travel by foot. Anyways, Scully's back at her hearing somehow.
I don't believe the FBI currently has an investigative unit qualified to pursue the evidence in hand.
She basically just called you guys a bunch of incompetent fools, and you know what? She's not wrong. Meanwhile, Mulder's reading a newspaper claiming the whole incident was nothing more than an outbreak of the hantavirus, which is what Curtzwhile said would happen. Also, it seems whoever printed the paper got lazy and just repeated the same couple paragraphs over and over. Scully meets up with Mulder and the two get a little overdramatic. Mulder's like, "Scully, you should leave. I almost got you killed." And Scully's all, "Scully, tell someone she's a medical doctor."
Mulder, I'll be a doctor, but my work is here with you now.
How many times has Scully and Mulder almost been killed? She's not going anywhere. Hey, I didn't know the X-Files was in the Star Wars universe. Cigarette Smoking Man meets with Strughold so they can talk about Mulder, but why? It almost feels like they're setting something up, but considering we never ever see this guy again, does any of it matter? Maybe he's the Dr. Claw of the X-Files universe. We never see him, but he's always in the background shouting, "I'll get you next time, Mulder. Next time." By the end of its 5th season, The X-Files was already a massive hit. It wasn't just a cult show anymore, it was appointment television. The kind of phenomenon that filled message boards, launched conspiracy theories, and made your uncle in cargo pants mutter something about black helicopters. Or me, I'm that uncle. Naturally, the idea of turning the series into a full-blown movie had been tossed around for years. As creator Chris Carter put it, they were already making little movies every week, so the leap to the big screen felt inevitable. But it couldn't just be more of the same. The movie had to justify its existence, and that meant making a story that delivered real answers for longtime fans, while still being accessible to people who thought Scully was the name of a Tim Burton character. The idea solidified over the 1996 Christmas break, when Carter and longtime co-writer Frank Spotnitz took a trip to Hawaii. You know, just two guys sipping Mai Tais, mapping out shadow governments and alien colonization. The two knew they needed a story that felt truly cinematic, bigger than anything the series had ever done, and they found it by looking way back in time. They researched the Ice Age and were fascinated to learn that glaciers had once reached as far south as Texas. That sparked the central conceit. What if something alien had been frozen beneath the earth, lying dormant for thousands of years and was now about to thaw? Kinda sounds like the episode Ice to me. With that prehistoric hook in mind, Carter returned to Hawaii in early 1997 and managed to hammer out roughly 2/3 of the script in 10 days. Not too shabby, especially considering that at the time, he was juggling the 4th season of The X-Files and the 1st season of Millennium. That 90-page draft was enough to convince 20th Century Fox to move forward. The writing process itself was done the same way Carter and Spotnitz broke stories for the show. Scenes mapped out on 3x5 index cards. Once the structure was nailed down, the two got to work writing the full screenplay, eventually finishing a hefty 124-page draft. Production moved fast, possibly a little too fast, and the team began prepping in March for a June shoot. That meant squeezing a massive production into the narrow hiatus between season 4 and 5. You know, no pressure.
Do you think I'm spooky?
To steer the ship, Carter tapped Rob Bowman, a series veteran who directed more than 25 episodes by that point. Carter had been especially impressed with Bowman's work on Season 3's 731 and felt he was the right person to elevate the material to cinematic levels. Bowman, for his part, took the assignment seriously, rewatching Lawrence of Arabia to study widescreen composition and planning shots that could finally break free from the limitations of TV. And it wasn't just about the scale, it was about the tone. The X-Files had always walked the line between noir paranoia and popcorn horror, and Bowman was determined to keep that balance intact. According to David Duchovny, Bowman was the ideal choice. He understands the way Jillian and I work, and we understand the way he works, so there's a lot less anxiety about the newness of making the film by working with him. The rest of the production team came together fast. Producer Daniel Sackheim, who had been involved with the pilot, signed on as a co-producer, his first major feature credit. Lada Ryan, a former collaborator with Steven Spielberg on Jurassic Park, joined as executive producer. She wasn't even allowed to take the script home. She had to read it under lock and key at the 1013 offices. That level of secrecy would become a defining trait of the entire production.
We're not supposed to talk about it.
You're not supposed to talk about it. Who told you that?
Chris Nowak came on as a production designer, Ward Russell as DP, and Bill Liams led the construction team. With most key positions filled just 6 weeks before cameras rolled, it was a race against time. The cast and crew were pulling double duty. wrapping up the TV season while simultaneously gearing up for a major motion picture. But no one was used to working on that pace, and when you work weekends, you spend more money, and the budget goes up for things that you don't ever show on the screen, Carter admitted. Before the movie was even finished filming, we were back into our process again of coming up with stories and writing scripts and going right back into season 5 of the television series. This wasn't just ambitious, it was exhausting. The entire crew basically gave up their vacation time to make it happen. 2 straight years without a break, just to make sure the movie got done. That is probably not the best way to work, but it's the only way we could do this movie, which we were all determined to do.
Mulder, there's no such thing as ghosts or psychokinesis.
Given the show's rabid fan base, the kind that could decode a screenshot of a blurry Bigfoot, Carter knew he had to keep details under wraps. The script was printed on red paper to prevent photocopying, fake plot points were leaked to throw fans off, even the movie's title was kept secret. Production operated under the codename Project Blackwood. For fans paying close attention, that name did eventually show up on screen. Blackwood County is printed on the fire trucks during the North Texas scenes. And in true X-Files fashion, the ending of the film wasn't written until just a few weeks before they shot it. If you ever wondered why the last act feels a little rushed, well, now you know. One of the biggest creative challenges was striking a balance between fan service and accessibility. Spotnitz explained that every scene was scrutinized through a very specific lens. Would this make sense to someone who's never seen the show? At the same time, they wanted to reward longtime viewers who had been following the show's tangled mythology for years. That meant giving some real answers, not just raising new questions, even if the answers were half-coded in some weird alien lingo. A great example of this balancing act was the inclusion of the lone gunmen, fan-favorite characters who walked the line between comic relief and full-blown exposition dumps. So it was difficult to find a way to put them in the movie and not have to explain too much who they were, because the audience that's been watching the television series for 5 years running knows who these guys are, but the non-fan would have no idea. So there's a very quick introduction to the lone gunman, Carter explained. The audience not understanding who they are, what's going on, and creating or ruining the suspension of disbelief because these characters are kind of cartoonish, but I think we found a way to do it, and to use it as a transitional piece in the story. Ultimately, they were included just long enough to acknowledge them, but not enough to leave new audiences scratching their heads like, who the hell are these guys? Mark Snow returned to score Fight the Future, bringing the series' eerie soundscape to a whole new level with an 85-piece orchestra, the first time the X-Files theme had ever been performed that way. Chris Carter wanted a minimal, atmospheric approach with very little melody, focusing instead on ambient textures and dissonant tones to match the film's moody tone. Snow composed the score while working on the series, using MIDI files that were later orchestrated for live performance. Alongside Snow's orchestral soundtrack, a second album was released featuring tracks from Filter, Foo Fighters, Noel Gallagher, and others, with some songs appearing in the film or end credits. One hidden track even featured Chris Carter himself, giving a cryptic spoken word summary of the show's mythology, hidden exactly 10:13 into the final track. Even the trailers went big, borrowing dramatic cues from Romeo and Juliet to sell the scale of Mulder and Scully's big screen debut. One of the more intense set pieces in Fight the Future is the bombing of a Dallas federal building, something director Rob Bowman was initially hesitant about. The memory of the Oklahoma City bombing was still fresh, and the similarities were too hard to ignore, but Bowman ultimately felt that letting Mulder and Scully evacuate the building beforehand gave the scene just enough distance from real-world tragedy. To get the details right, production brought in real experts, including a former LAPD bomb squad officer and an ex-FBI agent, who not only consulted on the logistics of the scene, but also made cameo appearances as agents assisting Scully. The explosion itself was pulled off with a mix of miniature effects, CGI, and one very real controlled detonation, filmed from 14 different camera angles. Bowman's editing choice was to stay grounded. Rather than focus on chaos or spectacle, the explosion is mostly seen from inside Mulder and Scully's car, emphasizing their perspective over a traditional action movie approach, although it still is a pretty amazing explosion. One of the most ambitious and literal stunts in Fight the Future involved a swarm of 300,000 live bees. Director Rob Bowman recalled the challenge. How do we do that for days on end without everybody getting stung and mad? Since David and Gillian couldn't wear protection on camera, the crew initially showed solidarity by also going without gear. That ended the moment producer Danny Sackheim got stung. Bowman admitted the protective suits came out real fast after that. For the actors, the bee scenes were a whole other kind of horror. Gillian described how wardrobe had to glue their sleeves and collars shut to keep the bees from sneaking in. The on-set bee doctor warned against padding your clothes, since a trapped bee might sting out of panic. During one take, hundreds of bees were tossed onto Gillian mid-scene. David comes in and he grabs me by the wrist to pull me along, she said, and I'm thinking, there's bees under there. Despite the risk, neither Anderson nor Duchovny got stung. Several crew members weren't so lucky. The surrounding cornfield sequence was inspired by childhood visits Chris Carter made to a friend's dairy farm. If you've ever gone into a cornfield at night, he said, it's one of the most frightening things in the world. The setting played on his personal fears of getting lost and of being stung. Bees, yellow jackets, scorpions, centipedes, things that pack a wallop, Carter explained. They're scary on a gut level. It also gave the film a unique visual. Wide shots of endless crops, enormous biotech domes. It was something the show could never afford to do on TV. It's eerie, isolating, and just the kind of place where you'd expect to catch a glimpse of an alien leg vanishing into the stalks. Unfortunately, someone else wanted in on the action. During filming, a teenager slipped past security and hid in the cornfield, filming footage of the actors and sets. He later sold the tape to a local news station, leaking major plot visuals nearly a year before the film's release. For months before Fight the Future hit theaters, fans were teased with a cheeky promise. This movie would finally reveal the bare bottom of Fox Mulder, which I'm pretty sure is something we had all been waiting for. And technically it did, just not in the way people expected. Chris Carter later joked, I can't believe that so many people would be interested in David Duchovny's butt. You would think that a man's butt is not all that, but we blew up the shot and framed it for posterity. In fact, we're thinking of making the next movie all about David Duchovny's butt. Unfortunately, the planned glimpse, a hospital gown moment during Mulder's post-gunshot recovery, never made the final cut. Carter explained the shot was filmed, but ultimately scrapped because the camera angle made it unusable. The full moment did show up in the gag reel though, with Duchovny describing it like only he can. It was a scene at the hospital and I get up out of bed, and I've got one of those hospital gowns on and my ass was just hanging out. It was written in the script as the first time you get to see Mulder's moon or whatever, and I thought that was funny. Again, I thought it was a clever way to get really gratuitous nudity, which I love gratuitous nudity. I think it's the only kind of nudity to be allowed. It's all gratuitous. I mean, when does anybody have to be naked in a film? Unless you were in the movie before there were clothes. But I thought, okay, a real gratuitous ass shot is just wonderful. Especially cause I'd been laying on it for 2 days in a coma, basically. I mean, it was just a nasty ass shot. And it turns out that wasn't the only potential butt shot planned. Gillian Anderson revealed, Mulder was supposed to pick me up naked and throw me over his shoulder, so that we'd be cheek to cheek, she added with a laugh. But we didn't film it that way. If you're not going to see David's bare butt, you certainly aren't going to see mine. So in the end, both leads were supposed to flash some flesh, but since David's shot didn't make the final cut, Gillian made sure things stayed fair. Equality matters, especially when it comes to bare asses. One of the emotional threads running through the X-Files movie is just how much Mulder truly needs Scully, something he comes to realize more fully than ever before. Director Rob Bowman described their near-kiss scene as a culmination of respect, admiration, and a deeply human moment between the two. The filmmakers never intended to fully deliver on that romantic payoff. Instead, they threw in what Bowman jokingly called a consolation prize. The later scene where Mulder gives Scully mouth-to-mouth. In Chris Carter's mind, the idea was that if you combine the intent behind the hallway kiss with the actual physical contact of the mouth-to-mouth, then technically that's a kiss. Kind of. If you squint. Bowman admitted he preferred the intimacy of the hallway kiss over the workaround, but Carter stuck to the show's rulebook. Never give the fans what they actually want, like a satisfying conclusion to the series. Interestingly, David Duchovny was on board with the decision to hold back. He thought the unfulfilled kiss was more powerful, saying it highlighted the desire between them rather than the act itself. Though he also joked that this kind of thing works better in fiction than in real life. Behind the scenes, Duchovny and Gillian Anderson had a little fun with the moment, filming a deliberately over-the-top hot and heavy kiss as a joke for the crew. Duchovny even quipped that at one point they went off camera to do their own exaggerated version. While he claimed it wasn't caught on film, a short clip of it did eventually surface on the gag reel. So while the film never delivers the long-awaited kiss outright, it teases, flirts, and dances right up to the line, then pulls away, just the way the X-Files likes it and the shippers absolutely hate it. Before it hit theaters nationwide, The X-Files Fight the Future held its world premiere on June 11th, 1998 at the Man Bruin Theater in Westwood, Los Angeles. It was basically a full-on X-Files reunion. Chris Carter, Frank Spotnitz, Rob Bowman, Duchovny, Anderson, and most of the show's recurring players showed up. Martin Landau, John Neville, William B. Davis, Mimi Rogers, Nick Leah, Laurie Holden, Mark Snow, basically everyone short of Toombs. Fans camped out in bleachers were given free copies of the soundtrack CD. A pretty sweet deal considering CDs still cost like $18 back then, or if you were me buying imported CDs from bands like Opeth and Children of Bodom, you were paying $30 per CD, which is bullshit. The film went wide on June 19th, 1998, smack in the middle of the summer blockbuster season, alongside Disney's Mulan. It played for 14 weeks with a maximum theater count of 2,650 across the United States and Canada. Money-wise, Fight the Future was a major studio investment. The production budget was originally reported at $60 million, but that figure eventually crept up to $66 million. Add another $60 million for global marketing, and Fox had spent about $126 million all in. The film pulled in just over $189 million worldwide, and with theaters taking their cut, Fox likely saw about 55% of that return, which kinda makes this movie a bomb, though it did pretty well on home video. Critically, the response was decent. Nothing mind-blowing, but solid enough. It sits at 66% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 6.1 average, and a 7 on IMDb. Audience response was a little more enthusiastic with a cinema score of A-. Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, saying the movie worked fine on its own, but really needed a sequel, a prequel, and cliff notes. Gene Siskel agreed, praising the characters and admitting he was tempted to finally check out the show. Other critics were more mixed. Salon said it was just a 2-hour episode, which is fair, while the Washington Post called it stylish, scary, funny, and gross, which honestly sounds like a compliment. A sequel finally landed in 2008, The X-Files: I Want to Believe, but it wasn't quite what fans were hoping for. After years of waiting, what we got was a standalone thriller with zero aliens and very little mythology, more like a moody episode of Criminal Minds than the epic follow-up many expected. That said, the desire for a sequel had definitely been there. Fans were ready for more big-screen X-Files, especially one that pushed the alien conspiracy arc forward. Unfortunately, I Want to Believe only pulled in $68 million worldwide and earned a significantly lower Rotten Tomatoes score than the first film. Chris Carter had originally said that if the movie was a success, he'd pitch a third film to bring back the alien invasion plot, culminating in the foretold date of December 2012. But with the box office numbers being underwhelming, that third movie just never happened. Instead, the series returned to TV in 2016, and the mythology continued. Kind of. X-Files Fight the Future is a solid movie, but I'm not sure it works as well for viewers who haven't seen every single mythology-based episode. There's a lot of stuff that only true fans would catch, and randomly adding new characters while saying they've always been a part of the story just makes things murky. Also, the way the black oil changes is a bit confusing. In the past, it could swap bodies, then it could emit radiation, and now it turns into a monster and bursts out of people's chests. I like the idea, but it kinda comes out of nowhere. If the oil was always capable of this, why didn't we see it before? Obviously, the Greys have been messing with the Syndicate all along, but this new twist feels like when you played superheroes as a kid, and the neighbor kid always had some new power you couldn't beat. Oh, now I'm super strong. Now I can fly. Now I'm invincible. It's like no matter what the Syndicate does, the Greys always have another trick up their sleeves. Still, the alien itself is pretty damn creepy, and I've always liked its design, even if it doesn't stick around for long when the show returns in season 6. And don't worry, the black oil will go on to do plenty of other weird and confusing things in the future that will only make the plot even more complicated. Overall, the movie is pretty fun and definitely feels like a bigger budget extended episode. Personally, I would have preferred if the movie wrapped up the mythology arc and then they stuck to standalone stories moving forward, but the TV series was just too lucrative for that to happen. Still, it's great to see some of my favorite characters on the big screen, even if they don't add much to the overall story. But what do you think of the X-Files Fight the Future? Let me know down in the comments. Anyways, that's all for today. Thank you so much for your support and stay spooky!